Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I'm Alison. I write as Alison May and Ali Sinclair and 50% of Juliet Bell. I am a novelist, writing tutor and editor, and this is my home on YouTube where I talk about all things writing and publishing related. If that sounds up your street, please hit subscribe, ring that bell so that you get notifications when there's a new video, and usually I have new videos every Friday. Today, I'm having a look at the AuthorTube Unfinished Projects tag. This is a tag that was started by Jenna Tesher. I will put a link to her original video and the questions for this tag down below. So if you're a writer and you want to have a go at making a video on this subject, please consider yourself tagged. The Unfinished Projects tag, as it sounds, is all about what unfinished projects you have in a drawer or on your computer. In my case, on the computer. I don't generally print stuff out or work on paper until I'm at the editing stage. Once I'm at the editing stage, usually things do get finished. So we're talking about stuff that's sitting on my hard drive that never quite got across the line. So the first question in this tag is, how many unfinished projects do you have? And in my case, I've done a little count up before I started recording this morning, and I have 8 at the moment unfinished projects on my computer. I don't think that's too bad. I think there's probably a lot of people out there with a lot more than that. There's probably some people out there with none at all. There's probably some writers who are thinking, oh, why would you start it if you weren't going to finish? This is just ridiculous. So I think 8 is like a reasonable middle ground sort of number. And so I'm going to go through with for each project answering the different questions, which are: when did you start it? What genre is it in? What is the description or the hook? What's the current word count? What caused you to stall? Are you planning to finish it? What's the projected word count? Is it part of a series? And what's your planned publishing path? Now, I might not be able to answer all of those for every project because some of them I just don't know yet, but we'll take a stab, and I'm going to break the 8 down a little bit and kind of group them together because there's some that kind of the answers are similar for. So first off, I have 2 projects that are currently still in progress. So the first one is the novel I'm writing at the moment, which is my second novel as Ali Sinclair. The first book is out in January, and the second book is scheduled to come out in August 2023. So that book is only unfinished because I'm still working on it. It's due into the publisher at the end of January next year, so it will be finished really, really soon. It's already under contract, so the plan is that will come out with Hera Books, my new publisher, in August next year. So that one's fairly straightforward. But I also have another book that is in progress, which the working title is The Fat Lady Shop. That will change because titles are nearly always changed by publishers, and I tend to go down a traditional publishing path where that's possible. It tends to suit me slightly better. So that book is currently at, I think, about 60,000 words and was probably about 3 or 4 weeks off being finished when I signed the contract for this 2-book series that I'm writing for Hera. So it got shelved just because I'd signed a contract, and so I had a book I had to write under contract. And books that you're definitely going to sell and are definitely going to get paid for kind of take priority over ones you might not. So that isn't, I would barely even, kind of reluctant to even call that one an unfinished project or an abandoned project, because it is literally just shelved while I fulfill this contract, and I'm planning to come straight back to it after I've delivered my second book on this contract. And it's probably, having had a break for it, it'll take a little while to get my head back into it, but it's probably a month, maybe 5 weeks now off being finished, and then that book will potentially go out on submission, probably initially to my current publisher, but who knows? There's all sorts of discussions that an author and agent have about when to send a book out, who to send it to, all of that kind of stuff. So those conversations will happen, but those 2 I wouldn't really say fall properly under the umbrella of the idea of an unfinished project, because they're both actively in progress, and will both be finished by kind of early spring next year. So stuff that's been sitting languishing for a little bit longer, let's get on to that. So my second category for unfinished projects is kind of things that are just at the ideas stage. So these are things where there is a folder or a file on my computer somewhere because I've started noodling away with ideas. I've made a few notes. I've kind of written a paragraph to myself of like what I think the concept is. Now, I am not at all a big planner, so I don't write generally like a scene by scene plan before I write, but I do write a lot of notes and a lot of kind of just sort of sketches of who the characters are, what the setting is, what might happen, what the kind of hook might be. And then generally speaking, once I'm writing, I ignore all of those notes and thoughts, but I kind of need to go through that sort of creative process of just kind of swimming in the idea a bit and seeing how it feels. So I've got two ideas that are sort of in that state at the moment. First, the working title is Cupcakeville, and it's a sort of fantasy contemporary rom-com. I don't even know if that is a genre, but it totally could be. And it's about a woman who has a kind of Life on Mars-esque moment where one day she's in a perfectly normal world and then something happens to her and she suddenly finds herself kind of in a storybook. So a bit like, if you remember Schmigadoon, if any of you watched that, I think that was on Apple TV over here in the UK. Life on Mars, which was a BBC series a few years ago. The Wizard of Oz. All of these stories where someone is transported to a world that is somewhere different from their own. And it was that sort of story, but still a rom-com. There are no words on that project at the moment, just sort of noodly ideas. Am I planning to finish it? Planning is a strong word. I think it might be a tough sell, which slightly puts me off, but I also think it'll be lots and lots and lots of fun to write, which encourages me. So, am I planning to finish it? Maybe. We'll see what else happens. If I find I have some downtime, if I find myself out of contract and I have some time where I can just write something for the fun of writing it, maybe. The other idea that's in that very kind of nebulous ideas stage at the moment that I'm much more firmly committed to writing when time allows is a detective story. I've been having discussions with my agent on and off for probably 5 years now about maybe writing a crime novel. And it's an idea that we're both really excited by, but just keeps getting put back because of other things, which either for contractual reasons or because it's an idea that's very kind of the moment. There are other things that I've chosen to write first, but that is definitely on my to-do list, hopefully for next year. Again, it depends what else happens with other books and other publications. I love the publisher I'm writing for at the moment. I'm writing rom-com for them, so I'm really hopeful that they will want some more rom-coms from me. And then, again, as I've said before, once you've got a contract, you prioritise that, obviously. So we'll see, but I am really definitely going to write that detective story idea at some point. There are 0 words in it at the moment. I haven't so much stalled on it as just never had a window of opportunity to really dedicate some time to writing it because of other projects and other things that have come up. So that's kind of 2 categories. There's the stuff that's unfinished because it's still in progress. There's the stuff that's unfinished because it's never really been in progress, but there are good intentions there. Let's move on now to some stuff that definitely has been in progress and never quite made it over the finish line. So this next one is a little bit of a heartbreaker. So this is a story that was called The Escape Plan. It was women's fiction with a kind of hint of mystery, a hint of suspense in there with it. It was the first thing I wrote after I had signed with my current agent. She loved the idea. She really didn't love the book. So this was a complete manuscript, about, I think, 80,000 words. And my agent just didn't really think it was strong enough. And really, really, really annoyingly, she was right. And there's bits in this story that I really like. There's one subplot about a sort of cult community that I really like and might revisit one day in a different context. Will I go back and revise this book? I don't think so. There's too much that's just structurally wrong with it. There's too much that tonally doesn't quite sit together. It had two plot lines. There was always one that was stronger than the other, but even in that stronger plot line there were a lot of tonal shifts. It didn't quite know whether it was wanted to be a psychological thriller, whether it wanted to be kind of mainstream women's fiction, whether it wanted to be lighter women's fiction, and I think I got a bit in my own head and I overthought it, and lost the characters and the story and the main drive of the story. So there's definitely stuff from that I will take and reuse somewhere else potentially. There are no wasted words. It wasn't a waste of life to write it, but there's an awful lot wrong with that book. So do I think I'll ever finish it and publish it? Probably not. Next category. Okay, this is an interesting one. So this is another one where I had a complete manuscript, and me and my agent both agreed that it just wasn't quite there. And I've talked about this story before, I think, in a video I did about editing. Was it about editing? I can't remember, but I've definitely talked about this novel on YouTube before. So this was a dual timeline. It had a historical thread and a contemporary thread. And I think the historical timeline I really liked. My agent wasn't convinced, but I did really like the historical timeline. But we both felt that the contemporary timeline wasn't really strong enough. And I think with that book, I just put like 3 ideas too many in it. And this is something I tend to do. We all have strengths and weaknesses as writers. When I first started out, I always used to write too short. My first drafts could be like 50,000 words for an 85,000 word novel. And I would always have to work very hard to try and fill out and flesh out the story to get up to that 80,000, 90,000 commercial length. But now I think I've overcompensated for that. I've learnt that that's a thing I do, and now I've sort of almost swung the other way, and I tend to put far too many ideas in to try and get it up to the right length, and things can end up a bit overcomplex, a bit convoluted, and that's what happened here. It just has like 3 ideas too many in it. Will I ever rework this as a novel? Probably not. I've got a complete manuscript, but again, to rework it as a novel, you'd need to gut it and basically start again. However, there's stuff in the historical thread that I really, really like. And every time I look at that, what my brain says is, this is a TV series. This isn't a novel, it's a TV series. Now, I have never written a TV script. I've never written for television, but I love television. And who knows, maybe one day, if I was going to rework the idea, I would try and rework it as a TV script, I think. Maybe one day. It's not a firm plan at the moment, but you never know. So that has taken us through 6 of the 8 unfinished projects. We've got 2 more to talk about. Number 5 is one that I definitely do intend to finish one day, and it's been the thing I'm going to do next for about 8 years now. So I might get to it at some point, you never know. And this is a how-to book about writing, editing and publishing a novel. I teach a lot of courses, I work one-to-one with people, mentoring and editing, and it's something that I get asked about quite a lot. Oh, you should write a book about writing a novel, and I've intended to for a long time. I've actually got a plan. I don't tend to plan a lot when I'm writing fiction, but for this as non-fiction, I've got a proper chapter plan. I know what I want to put in that book. I know how I want to kind of style it. I know what I want the tone of it to be. So this one is purely a problem of time, in that it's one more thing to fit around writing my own fiction, teaching, editing, YouTube, and 1,001 other things, and it's just always been the thing that has never made it into the like top 5 on the to-do list at any given moment. So yeah, really strong good intentions. I would love to finish this. I would love to have a book out there that all of you could buy, to kind of distill everything that I reckon about publishing and writing and editing a novel. So this is a definite good intention. At the moment, I think I have about 10,000 words, and I have an awful lot of work still to do on that. But one day it will come. Harass me about it in the comments, and maybe that will, you know, put a fire under me to get on with that project. And finally, the maddest of all of the unfinished projects on my hard disk is the beginnings of a sitcom script. So I said I've never written for television. I've never had anything produced for television. I've never actually got as far as submitting a TV script. But I've dabbled in trying to write for TV. I've done a couple of screenwriting courses and things like that over the years. And it is something that I would really love to do one day. I've done 2 different writing TV comedy courses, the upshot of which is a sort of half thought through probably about 10 minutes of a 30-minute episode script for something that at the moment is simply called Nuns. And you have to say it Nuns because it has an exclamation mark at the end, and there's no way of saying an exclamation mark, so you have to Nuns with your arms. Nuns! It's very, very silly, and it's basically porridge in a convent. And will I ever finish it? I have no idea. I suspect not. But there's some really funny jokes in it. There's the opening scene I wrote for the pilot episode makes me laugh to think about it. So it brought me joy, if nothing else. Will I ever finish it? Yeah, probably not. But it was fun to try. So there you go. Those are my 8 unfinished projects. Looking at that list, there's probably 4 that I would say confidently will see the light of day. That's the current work in progress, the Fat Lady Shop, the detective story, and the novel writing how-to book. I'm pretty confident that all of those will appear in some form or other. Maybe a TV script of the historical idea. Maybe the kind of fantasy world slip rom-com one day, but those have got big question marks over. And the other 2, The Escape Plan and Nuns, I think probably not. I think they probably deserve to live exactly where they are, closeted away on a hard drive where no one else will see them. So those are my unfinished projects. Do please record your own video under this tag if you're a writer and it looks like fun to you. If you have questions about any of those projects, please pop them in the comments before. If there's anything you'd like to see a video on in the new year, again, pop it in the comments down below, and I will try to get onto that in the new year. Anything at all about writing, editing, publishing a novel, about a writing career, about an author's life, please just ask and I'll try and put a video together on that in the new year. In the meantime, please do like and subscribe to the channel. This is probably going to be my last video before Christmas. I might do something quick next Friday. I haven't 100% decided yet, but this is probably going to be my last video before Christmas. So if it is, have a very, very good Christmas and New Year, whatever you're doing over the festive period, whether you celebrate Christmas or not. Have a lovely couple of weeks and I will see you in January. So long.